Hi everybody, welcome back to Remote English Learning. We're in our 5th week. We have 3 more weeks to go after this. You guys are doing a great job hanging in there with me, doing the reading that you need to do and answering the questions that you need to answer. I'm super proud of you. Graduation is just right around the corner. I'm hoping that something special can be done for you for graduation, even if it's in the summer. Same way with prom. It would be great if something could be done in the summer, since maybe that can't happen during the school year. It would be really nice that could happen. Also, the video for your graduation, I'm sorry I didn't do a video for you. I did a picture, and I am definitely CD proud of you guys. You're doing a great job. But videos aren't really my thing, so I thought a picture with my dog and a poster would be good enough. So I hope you saw that, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was really long. I was surprised at how long it was. Anyways, so back to school. We're finishing out the book this week, and if you look in Canvas here, we have the directions for the week. They're pretty straightforward. You can take a look at those. I had the calendar laid out for you again. Pretty much these 2 ideas just say the same thing, but they say it in different words. There are study discussion questions for chapters 20 through 25. That would be the reading assignment for the week. And then there is 1 chapter question for discussion that covers chapters 20 through 25. The prompt for the question, there's some required reading before you get to the prompt so that you understand the prompt a little bit better. So make sure that you read everything before you go straight to the question. And again, you want to answer the discussion question, and then you want to also respond to somebody else's response as well. And then finally, you're going to end out the week with the attendance quiz. And it's a little bit on the longer side this time. It is about the 5 chapters that you read. So you want to make sure that you take that. That's my attendance for the week. That's something that I have to turn in to the principals at the beginning of each following week. So on Monday, I'll turn in the attendance. So you want to make sure that you do that for me so that you can get credit. So anyways, yeah, we're finishing out the book. And even though you can't see it here, but on Friday, there's going to be another video that you can watch that's going to talk about this discussion question, and it's going to talk about these questions from the study guide. And that'll be there, so you want to make sure that you watch it. Like I said, even though it's not there yet, it will be soon. And then the other thing that you should be aware of is that coming up on Monday, there's going to be a test on the entire novel. So you'll have that going on next week, and it'll be just like the previous one. It'll be an outside link that you'll have to go to in order to take the quiz. And then I think for the remainder of the 3 weeks, we're going to stick with Things Fall Apart, but we're also going to be talking about Hamlet a little bit at the same time. Rather than going on to another novel that we probably couldn't complete in 3 weeks, I'll put the links in, I guess, for the movie if you'd like to watch the movie so that you can get some background on it. But I was looking at the book today, and the book runs around 234 pages. And I think that would be a lot of reading for you to try to do in the next 3 weeks. So I think we're going to stick, like I said, to Things Fall Apart and Hamlet, and do some more things with them for the next 3 weeks. Alrighty, so what I want to do, and I'm going to turn my computer towards me, is we got to talk about last week and what you guys were doing last week. And last week had study discussion questions for chapters 14 through 19. So there were, I believe, 13 questions, and the first question reads, where did Okonkwo take his family to live? So Okonkwo, if you remember, he is exiled from Umuofia because he accidentally killed somebody during a funeral. He killed one of the elder's sons in the village. The elder had died, and his son was grieving and dancing with his siblings, and Okonkwo accidentally killed him. And because he accidentally killed him, and it was called a female crime, he was sent to live in Mabanta, which is where his mother was from. And he had to live there for 7 years before he could return to the tribe. Now, how did Okonkwo feel about his circumstances initially? Initially, when he got to Mabanta, he hated it. He didn't want to do anything. He lazed around inside his obi. He didn't eat. He didn't drink. He couldn't sleep. He didn't have any interest in his children, any interest in his wives. He just had a total disregard for life. He just wasn't interested at all. Then eventually he does come around, and by the end of chapter 19, he's actually quite affluent in Mabanta as well. Okay, so question number 3 says, who came to visit Okonkwo during the second year of exile and why? So Oberka, who is one of Okonkwo's really good friends from Umuofia, comes, and he tells Okonkwo a story about the destruction of Abane, which is actually the next question. And while he tells him okay, so anyways, he talks about how the missionaries had come to Umuofia and how the missionaries were trying to inject their religious beliefs into the society and trying to get people to convert to the white man's religion. And at the same time, he talked about how it was the outcasts who were going to the white man's religion, and not some of the stronger men of the clan. Eventually that changes. Pretty soon a lot of people go to the white man's religion. But in the very beginning, it was mainly the outcasts. The Ozo, I believe, is the name of them. And they hadn't cut their hair for a really long time. And the only way that they could be allowed into the religion was to cut their hair and declare themselves not outcasts, but rather as members of society. Or women who had twins, who had to, have their twins taken from them and left in the evil forest. They came to the religion pretty easily. So Oberika, when he comes to visit Okonkwo during his second year, he brings that news. Now he also, question number 4 says, briefly retell the story of the destruction of Abane. He tells the story of how the white man came to Abane. A white man came to Abane, and he was riding on an iron horse. And he wasn't threatening, he wasn't aggressive, he wasn't assertive, he wasn't demanding. He simply rode in on an iron horse. And because the people of Abame didn't understand who he was, and because they were afraid of him and his iron horse, they killed him. No questions asked. And then they took the iron horse, which is really a bicycle. They took the iron horse and they tied the iron horse to a tree. And nothing happened for a while. And then pretty soon, they were all gathered at the marketplace for trading and selling and visiting and gossiping and all that kind of stuff. And the white men, the missionaries, the white men surrounded the village of Abane in the marketplace, and they killed everybody that was in the marketplace. So only those who didn't go to the marketplace or who were too ill were the survivors of the slaughter of Abane. Now, Uchendo, question number 5 is, what was Uchendo's and Okonkwo's reactions to the story? Well, Okonkwo was outraged. He's like, well, they should have known that they needed to keep their machetes handy. They should have been, more protective of what was going on in their village. They killed a white man. They should have known something more was going to come of it. And they shouldn't have been so easygoing and accepting that a white man came in and they killed this white man. Uchendo, who is Okonkwo's mother's brother, so his uncle, points out that this man, this white missionary who came in, didn't say anything. He didn't act aggressively. He wasn't assertive. He wasn't demanding. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He wasn't scared. He just allowed himself to be killed. And Uchendo provides a story about if you kill something and they take their death as a resignation, and they don't yell and they don't scream and they don't holler and they don't fight, then there's a greater threat from that person because they didn't do those things, as opposed to a man who cries and begs for his life and screams for mercy because there's less of a threat from that man later on down the road. So Uchendo says that man shouldn't have been killed in the first place because he didn't really present any harm to them. They just took actions into their own hands when they should have been maybe more accepting of him. What event does Obarica describe on his next visit, which is 2 years later? So now he talks about how, again, the white men have brought their Christian religion into Umuofia. More converts are coming. And question number 7, who does he find among the missionaries? He finds Okonkwo's oldest son, Noao. And Noao has joined the missionaries because he feels a comfort in their stories and in their hymns, and he believes that there's more of an explanation to twins and why twins are born, or why it's wrong to, kill a young man because that young man's father murdered somebody else, as in the case of Ikefuma. So he found a more comfortable existence among the missionaries, and he has chosen to go that route. Eventually, in chapters 20 through 25, we find out that he goes to school, he changes his name, he becomes Isaac, and he becomes a very well-educated young man. Skipping question 8, because that's about the Iron Horse. We already talked about that. Question 9, where did the missionaries in Mabanta build their church? They built it in the Evil Forest because the Umuofians and the Mabantans believed that the Evil Forest would take care of the missionaries and their church, and the Evil Forest would destroy the church. But that didn't happen, and the church actually flourished. So it kind of took away from their beliefs about the Evil Forest and all that, which would have just caused more converts to come to the white man's religion when they discovered that the evil forest wasn't an actual thing. Question 10 is, what was it about Noao's actions that disturbed Okonkwo so much? Noao is Okonkwo's oldest son. So Okonkwo would have been very upset that his oldest son had left the family to go to be with the Christians. And he says that Noao's action was practically like bringing death to his ancestors, because if everybody stops believing in the real gods, the Chukwu and the wooden gods and the ancestors, then there won't be anybody to praise him, to glorify him, to worship him when he's dead and gone either. So there's a little bit of fear there of whether he'll be remembered and praised after his death. Like I said, the Ozos were one of the outcasts that were that accepted by the Christian church. Question number 12. Excuse me. One of the Osos kills the sacred python in the clan. The clan say that they're going to retaliate on this particular man for killing the sacred python, but the very next day the man's dead. So that they feel they don't have to do anything because the gods have taken care of the man their way. And then question 13 is, what did Okonkwo do before he left Mabanta when his exile was ended? He had a huge feast for his mother's brother, his uncle, and his extended family, and all of the important people he came to know in Mabanta, all the leaders. Okay, so those were the 13 questions. And then the discussion questions, let me find those real quick. I don't talk this much, so my voice is giving way on me tonight. I'm doing more typing now than I am talking and answering emails. Okay. That is not the right thing I'm looking for. Okay, so the discussion questions for chapters 17 through 19. It says a man's personal chi is very integral to his success and even his failure. Expand what a man's chi is, and then explain how Okonkwo's chi changed from the beginning of the novel to the end of the chapter 17. How could you relate a man's chi to modern life? Give an example from your personal life where you were in control of your successes and your failure. Okay, so in the story, we learn that if a man believes he can do something, then his chi will also believe that he can do it, and the man will find success. So at the beginning of the novel, Okonkwo believed that he could be a good sharecropper, he could be a good farmer, he could be a wealthy man, he could have many wives, he could have many children. And because he believed so strongly in these things, his chi believed as well. And everything he tried to do, he succeeded at it. Now, there's a paradox to this too, because it also says in the story that when a man thinks too highly of himself, that his chi will work against him and will bring him failure. So we can see this happening to Okonkwo because Okonkwo thought an awful lot of himself. He was a titled man, he was a wealthy man, he overcame the failure of his father, he was wealthy, well respected. Suddenly his chi gets a little tired of his being bigger than he really is type deal, and his chi allows him to accidentally kill an elder son and then be exiled. Karma, maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's what the suggestion is about when you get, when you think more of yourself than you should, that, it comes around and it bites you in the behind. Okay, maybe that's karma. So explain how you could relate this to a man's chi in modern life. I think it's basically the idea that if you believe in yourself and you have confidence in who you are and what you're doing, you're going to be successful. But if you have self-doubt, you don't believe in yourself, or you're not a very confident person, it takes you a lot longer to find success. Not that you can't find success, but it just takes you longer to find success. An example from my personal life, I can think of good examples, but I don't know. Here's an example of where my chi didn't work for me. When I graduated from college the first time, I thought I was going to do great things in public relations. And I went for an interview, and I found material from this particular doctor's office. I was going to be his PR person, and I created this great newsletter for him. He was a chiropractor. I called it Spinal Tap. I was really proud of myself, and I published it and everything. And when I went into the interview and I sat down and I presented him, I interviewed well, and I presented him with this great newsletter that I created, and it was all published and polished and beautiful and everything. And he looked at me and he said, "I'm sorry, you're overqualified. I can't hire you because I can't afford you." And that certainly wasn't what I expected by, being dutiful and researching him and creating that newsletter and everything that went along with it. I thought I was going to impress him. I guess I impressed him too much and didn't get the job. Okay, so that's question for chapter 17. Chapter 18, how is the missionaries' religion different than the religion of the Nigerian people? It's really not all that different. I mean, we learn a little bit more about it in the next 5 chapters. But the main difference is that the missionaries' religion has one God, as opposed to the Nigerian people who do believe in one God, but then they have a lot of minor deities as well, so that when they need a problem solved, rather than going to Chukwu, who is their main god, they go to the minor deities so that they don't bother Chukwu with their minor problems. And then they eventually say that if the minor deities can't handle the problem, then they'll go to Chukwu and they'll ask Chukwu for advice. But they do believe in a supreme being, the same as the missionaries believe in a supreme being. So they're kind of on the same page with some of their ideas, but then they're also very different in others. Chapter 19 says, explain the following proverb. We are better than animals because we have kinsmen. An animal rubs its itching flank against a tree. A man asks his kinsman to scratch it. How does this proverb relate to Uchendo's fear at the end of chapter 20? Should have said at the end of chapter 19, not chapter 20. So Uchendo says at the end of chapter 19, that he fears for the young generation because the young generation aren't strongly bonded to one another, and because they're not strongly bonded to one another, they won't take one another's back quite as quickly, say, as men from an older generation. And he says that his proverb says that as long as we're closely bonded to our family, we always have somebody that we can go to and we can ask for help from. In the case of the proverb, it's to itch our back. But that would be in any case, you know, if you fall upon hard times, you hope your family can take care of you. If you need somebody, if you have an argument, you need somebody to take your back, you hope that it's your family who will take your back. And Uchendo says that his biggest fear is that the clan is starting to fall apart because the young people they're not quite as close knit as the older generation is, and they may not be there to help one another out as much as the older generation is. And that's pretty much the point that he's making. And it's in this chapter, at the end of this chapter, he introduces the idea of things falling apart, that the younger generation is starting to fall apart. And then the next 5 chapters after this, there's a lot of references to falling apart or being broken that we'll actually talk about in the next discussion question. So anyways, that is the study questions for chapters 14 through 19 and the discussion questions. Those of you who participated gave me some great answers. Thank you very much for being part of the discussion. I hope this helped you better understand what's going on in the story. Again, we'll get together on Friday and we'll talk about those study questions for Friday as well, for chapters 20 through 25, and the discussion question as well. And then you'll have the weekend to prepare for the test, and then you'll have the test on Monday of next week. So anyways, take care. If you've got a mask, make sure you're wearing it. Take care of yourselves, take care of your family, get plenty of sleep, drink lots of water, wash your hands, and make sure that you're, talking to your friends online or however you're doing it. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.